Oh, and we are live. Okay, great. So, welcome everybody to the first ever live version of the Talk Like That podcast. And today, I'm very happy to have with me an actor, comedian, writer, Trish. Now, let's see if I can pronounce her name correctly. Trish Rainone. Um, is that correct, Trish?
That's perfect.
So it's not Rainone.
Actually, that's more perfect.
Oh, there you go.
That's how my grandfather would have said it.
But that is, but then people just think, oh, what a pompous twat, you know.
Right? I already give them enough reasons to think I'm a pompous twat. I don't never.
So, Trish, welcome to Talk Like That. I'm so happy to have you on. Not only are you my very first live guest, you are my first female guest.
Oh my gosh, so many firsts. I'm so excited to be part of that.
How many other firsts can there possibly be on the show? We'll see. We'll find out.
Find out how many cherries you have to pop. Is that a bad joke?
Yeah, no, not at all. There's no such thing as a bad joke on this show. In fact, we're happy to have any jokes at all, right?
Oh, now the pressure is on.
Well, you know, it's a very low bar that I set here.
I once had comedian on my Instagram because you can put a category for like a month, and people would inbox me and be like, "Are you really? But how funny are you? How many stand-up shows have you done? Are you really a comedian?" So I was like, I'm going to switch this back to something else. As soon as you're a comedian, the pressure is on to be funny. And then people are like, "You're not funny." So.
Oh, man, that really sucks when like you put yourself out as something. Well, not as something, but like you say, okay, this is what I am. You know, you have to pigeonhole yourself as something, right? People want to know, well, you know, you meet someone at a party and it's like, well, oh, what do you do? And then you have to think about how you can say what you do within like a couple of words or one line. And they're like, oh, so you're that. But you don't quite fit into what I consider to be a comedian. And yeah, so I can imagine you.
Exactly. And often I find we sell ourselves short. So we try to brush off things that we do. And it's like, I'm just this, or I'm just this. But, you know, I'm struggling. So I'm trying to be more assertive with how I introduce myself at parties. But yeah, it's hard to put it all out there and say all the things because we wear so many hats.
Right, exactly. And like you say, so often you'll hear people, usually women, will put themselves down in some way, like in a very subtle, kind of well-practiced way to say, oh, I'm just to this or I'm just to that. And
from years of conditioning by our society.
Yes, the patriarchal,
deprecating.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like no more of that. I'm amazing. That's what I should start saying. But then they're going to think I'm a pompous twat.
But I think that's okay because if people think you're a pompous twat, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, who cares, really?
I don't care.
Yeah, you care. I mean, I've lost count of the number of people that think I'm a pompous twat. So when you get to my age, you stop caring about stuff like that.
I just see how many times we can say twat today because that's a funny word. I like it.
Twat. Yes, there's two ways of pronouncing that. And you see, I don't know how it works out here in Canada. Oh, hang on. Can you hear my heater?
Your heater?
Heater, yeah. I've got a little electric heater down here.
Oh, I cannot hear it.
Good. Okay, I'll leave it on then.
Keep that heat on. Do not freeze.
Exactly. Especially up here in Toronto. Well, actually, people in the rest of Canada, like further north than us, are like, fuck off. Like, really? It never gets cold down there. It's like if your car ignition doesn't ice up, and you don't have to plug it in overnight just so that your car is warm enough to approach, then you don't know the meaning of cold. But
exactly, that's tropical stuff. If you don't have to plug in your car,
exactly, tropical. We're in the deep south. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, there are two ways of pronouncing that TWAT, and in Britain, people usually find that twat sounds a little bit posher. And I remember there was I don't know, an ex-girlfriend's dad many years ago. He used to always say, "Oh, twat," twat this, twat that, and he was quite posh. And yet, if he said it like twat, you twat, then it would be like people would be like, "Oh, you guys."
Oh, so
yeah, like, it's weird. It's like twat sounds kind of softer, whereas a twat is like that's like calling somebody a shithead or something, almost, it's
I think that's why I like twat, because it does sound posh, weirdly.
Yeah, exactly. It does sound kind of posh, especially the way you say it.
People who say it.
You can call me a twat any day, just don't call me a twat.
A twat. Okay. Let's see if I can get these straight.
Did you know that twat is also a verb?
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a transitive verb, though. You can't just go around twatting. You have to twat someone. So when you twat someone, it means that you hit them really hard or beat them up.
Oh, to twat them.
Twat someone. Yeah. So there you go. Something you've learned something you didn't know before. Okay. So if for nothing else, it's been educational for you.
It has been. This has been a good experience.
So I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions.
Cool.
And the first one is that I understand that your mom and your grandma raised you along with your three sisters. And I just wondered, what was it like growing up in such an estrogen-rich environment?
Ooh, there was a lot of fighting, like a lot of screaming. Not my mom and my grandmother. They were both pretty calm considering they had 4 girls running around. But between my sisters and I, there was a lot of fighting over clothing, toys when we were younger, attention. I was stuck in the middle between an older sister and then twins below me.
Oh,
wow. So I was that typical middle child.
Yeah.
But I think being, my mom being a single mom, my dad was still around. He was like a 5-minute drive away. So I still saw my father. But he's a very busy businessman. So I think I've, learned a lot about business through him. And that was great to see that example. But my mom was definitely the one at home raising us with her mother. And I think it has a lot to do, like now I tell character-rich stories for females. A lot of the projects I'm writing have a female lead, and I always kind of do that intentionally because I want to see females in leading roles, but then also I think just because I was surrounded by women, so you write what you know. So I write a lot of stories about women. That's
great. So I guess in a way you sort of made it your mission to raise the bar for female actors and so on, right?
Yeah, before I got into writing and creating, I was going out for, the one-line roles where coaches would say, you better take, or agents would say, take the classes on how to master one line because that's what you're going to be going out for as a female in the entertainment industry in Canada.
Man, that's so shitty. It's like someone telling you that, because of your gender, you're only going to be going for the one-line roles, okay? So make sure that you get a good shot at it.
Yeah, so really train up for that one line. I think I just spit a little. That's how intensely I'm opposed to that viewpoint. But that sadly was the reality until I started writing and producing and kind of showing the industry what I could do, basically.
Awesome. And do you think that being a middle child has kind of is that what drove you to like seek attention?
Definitely. My older sister is so smart. She would get like 101% on everything she did, but she was also really great at the arts. She was a great dancer, amazing at music. I pretended I could play trumpet for a year in grade 9, my first year of high school, and they discovered I couldn't even make a sound out of it when I did the playing exam at the end of the year.
I could just imagine you going like making trumpet sounds. Like
I sat next to the guy who is now a doctor because he was the smart guy in the class. So I was like, well, sit next to him and I'll do with my hands what he is doing and I'll pretend I can play. So I guess I was a bit of an underachiever, an underachiever. So yeah, I think I definitely, and then with twins as younger sisters, they're adorable. And people would come over to see the twins. So I probably, started getting all dramatic to try to.
Look at me. Look what I can do. I'm here too.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was like. I was always climbing things, climbing and getting into mischief. Yeah.
So I know you love comedy work and that you'd be happy only doing comedy. But before we come back to that, I just wonder, what other genres have you worked in?
Ooh, I've done a lot of horror. And I love that genre. I really like the makeup. I listen to a ton of true crime. I like horror films. I played Ouija board when I was a child growing up, which was a.
Oh, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, let's not discuss that. So I did very much enjoy do very much enjoy the horror genre. But once again, it was a bunch of roles that were one line or maybe a bigger role that in the edit got cut down to one line, which is always very disappointing.
Yeah.
So I've done some work in that regard, so-and-so's dead wife. I've had a lot of death scenes. I could definitely do up a dead reel.
How do you research for something like that? Do you go to the morgue or?
It's a good question. That is a good question. I don't know. Like researching, I guess, just from, I don't even know how I would research that. I kind of go to like a place of, I replace things. So if I'm being attacked by a person, in my head, I think like, what's the scariest thing that could happen to me? And I kind of envision that the person growing up in Northern Ontario, my fear is bears. So I kind of replace that person and I think about how I would react if I were to be face to face with a bear. But then I guess sometimes you can just be in the moment and just use the person, the actor that you're working with as the motivation and just picture yourself in that situation. I do a bit of both. Sometimes if I can't get there, or I'm distracted, I'm like, okay, think of the scariest thing. This person's now a bear, react how you would react. Or I don't know, I guess sometimes you can just work off together.
So that's the prelude to being the dead wife. But have you ever been in the scene when you had to be the corpse?
Yeah, so being the corpse, I don't know, you just lay there and I did have one corpse role. It's not out yet. And I think part of my role was cut. I'm just going to guess that it is because I could not keep my eyes open and somebody had to reach and touch my eyes and pull my eyelid down. And I had a line where I still speak when I'm dead, like for a little scare beat. And I kept fucking it up. Oh, can I swear?
Well, we've been swearing already. I was the one who started.
Swear, right?
Yeah, I started fucking swearing first of all. So, well, what I didn't do is warn people that if their kids are watching, like if my brother's watching this, I'm in big trouble because like he's the kind of dad who, if there's a movie that he thinks is really good, then what he'll do is he will actually edit a version of the movie so his girls can watch it.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, wow, brother, like he's going like the extra mile. And
that's totally the extra mile. Wow.
So I would never, Mike. That's why all my kids are like completely damaged. But they're swearing all the time. I remember when.
I'm impressed. I don't even think I'd be able to look after a child when it comes to the basics, and going beyond that and doing something like that for them. He deserves an award.
Oh yeah, that is definitely an award winner. That one is. I think that the extent of my my parenting in terms of swear words and that kind of thing, I never edited anything for them, and I could tell that this was maybe an issue when my youngest one was about 5 and she was playing in the garden and she had a stick that she was hitting the tree with, and she was going fuck, 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 and I walked out at that moment, and she was just like as if it was like yeah, like that kind of. She wasn't angry or anything. Right? She wasn't like
her.
Yeah, she wasn't like pissed off at the tree, and I'm like, that word you're saying, just be careful. Like, don't say that word around adults. Don't say it around anyone that will use that word again, because then their parents will get angry and then they'll come to us. So just
only use it around the cool kids who won't rat you out for using
exactly.
And
right. You see, that's how it is. So it's not that difficult parenting. So anyway, so you've played in horror movies. I don't. Okay, my kid, I'm going to talk about my kids again, just a little bit, but they all have Canadian accents, and the oldest one, because they all grew up here, right? And we moved out here in 2002, and my oldest one, she's 19, and she's she's into movies and theater production and stuff like this, and she said to me, I have to be. I'll try my Canadian accent. I have to be really careful how I say that word, because I like horror movies, but I have to be really careful how I say the word horror, because it can sound like the other word.
Right.
Right? Because in British English, it's horror and horror. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's we slur that word. Horror is how I would say, unless I thought, phonetically sat here and thought to pronounce it horror.
Yeah, nobody does that.
No, we just slur it. It's very dangerous.
Yeah.
I have not done horror movies.
Exactly. I just wanted to clear that up.
Very similar.
Just for the ones who don't know you. Okay, so what would you say are? Oh no! I have another question, which is: there are people that are still out there that believe that women can't do comedy. Why do you think these people are still? How can they still be alive?
I'm not sure, but I do know that during COVID, well, it's still during COVID. What am I talking about? When the pandemic that we are still very much living in started, I turned to TikTok and Instagram videos and that sort of thing to channel my desire to perform. And anytime I did my Carol Baskin impression, which I will do for you, and I even, for those watching, visually have a
great
little hat right here. It just happened to be here because I did a Tiger King review. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, it's Carol Baskin. Kitty cat, meow, meow. Kitty cat, kitty cat, kitty cat, meow, meow. Cool cat.
Very nice.
Anyways, I was doing Carol Baskin impressions. I had some blonde in my hair this summer, so it worked better. I made the little headband with like the flowers, and these people were commenting on my impression of Carol Baskin, that women cannot be funny, do this, like take off your makeup, you're not funny, like commenting about my makeup, about women in general.
Was this a live thing where they were shouting this at you on stage, or?
No, it was just on
comments.
Yeah, it was a video on Instagram. And I'm like, how can you, first of all, gender is so fluid. How do they know, like, how can you see a stranger on the internet and assume their gender and assume that an entire gender cannot be funny? I'm like, this is just wrong on so many levels. But when I would click the profiles, these were teenagers saying this. So this worries me. I'm like, why is it a group of teenagers?
Well,
who are
I think there are at least two main categories of people who will say this kind of thing. That will say that, oh, women can't be funny. So the one that you've told me about, I'm a little bit surprised by, but I think that they're teenagers. Maybe their humor genes have to, like, they have to develop the capacity to understand that, funny humor is beyond the fart joke. And dude, look at my dick, right? It's
right.
So they have to develop that sort of a certain amount of intelligence.
Developing.
Right?
Yeah.
And then there's another category that are mainly older gentlemen that think that, all the classic comedy greats, they're all men. Well, there's a reason why a lot of those men made it, is because it's set up by men, and men are the ones that get the prime gigs.
Right, and the women weren't given the chances. Like Mrs. Maisel, the comedy series, is a great example of what it was like for female comedians. I think she started, what's the something Mrs. Maisel? I forget the beginning part of the show.
Marvelous? Is it Marvelous?
Marvelous, that's the word.
That would make sense. I was thinking, is it amazing? It could be amazing.
Amazing doesn't quite mean that right. So the Marvelous, but in the series, at the beginning, it shows the woman who's the lead character, Mrs. Maisel, writing jokes for her husband's stand-up routines. So she's the joke writer, and then he's the one who has to go out and perform it. And obviously, he does not perform her jokes as well as she performs them. Yeah, which we get to see later on.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great show.
It is a really great show. And I think women just, we weren't given the opportunities. And I have had some older men, like you said, say some really inappropriate things at TIFF parties about, when they ask, what do you do? Bringing it back to, we wear so many hats. And if you mention being a producer or writer, some of them have been like, you can't do that. No, you look like an actor. You're probably just an actor. Like, no, you can't. You're not a producer. You're to this, or you're that. So I've definitely had my fair share of comments, but for every douchebag in this industry, there's a whole bunch of people who will support you and be on your team and make stuff happen. So there's always going to be people who have these just absurd ideas and want to put you in a box. And I think you just have to get used to that in life and in any business. And I think it really is
of the industry anyway. I mean, of many industries, but especially in like in film and so on. In the entertainment industry, it used to be way more like that, but it's still there. There's still a huge amount.
And that's one thing I didn't realize getting into it. I didn't realize how much of that would still exist. Because you think you're beyond that we're beyond that as humans, as a world, but sadly I've had some weird situations where I'm just like, are you serious? This still exists? But I guess you just have to keep going and prove to those people, like, use it as fuel and look at it like it's ridiculousness and just brush it off, move past it, or have one of your friends say something really rude to the guy the next night at a party when you see him. That also works. And embarrass him.
Did that happen yet, or is that something that is going to happen?
No, that happens. Like, people have each other's backs. So if somebody's like that, they're going to get called out. Just confront the person, brush it off, move on, and use it as fuel to keep creating. And there are so many people, like I said, for every idiot, there's, hundreds of people who don't have those preposterous ideas, and that will get behind you. And
not only that, though, I think there are a lot of people that will come out with stuff that is demeaning because, in a way, sometimes that helps them feel better about themselves.
Yeah, they're obviously in a bad place on the inside, and they're projecting that, spewing it out on you and other people. It's gross.
So apart from the whole patriarchal system, what would you say are your other main obstacles and challenges?
Ooh, getting the funding for projects. Once you get the funding, everything is a challenge. And I apply for a lot of grants. You get so many no's. I do so many auditions. You don't hear back. There are so many obstacles, but I feel like you really do. It sounds cliche, but you really just have to keep putting in the work and not get discouraged. You know how many no's you've gotten. Everyone else just sees the yeses. So they'll say to you, oh, you're so successful. You're doing so much. But in your head, you're thinking, what about all those no's I just got? Like, what about all the things I haven't been able to make that I've been wanting to make? But I think it's just, if you get so busy with so many things and keep persisting, if like 1 out of the 30 things gets a yes, then something is getting a yes. So you can keep moving forward. And all the work that you're putting in is really helping you. Say you're a writer and you're writing, you pitch 5 shows, you have 30 scripts on your computer, and you've made one thing actually happen and get the funding and whatever. At least all those other things that you're pitching, you're writing, they're growing you as a writer. So it's all part of, and if you enjoy doing it, then, it's a win-win. But it can be discouraging because, you try for so many projects and a lot of them just can't, get the green light.
Yeah.
But I think it's just growing you, and it grows, you develop a thick skin, and you also probably, I would hope, are becoming a stronger writer or stronger at your craft in the process. It's the same with actors. Every time we audition, I would hope that it's, we're learning something about ourselves as actors, as people, and really just getting a chance to do what we apparently love to do. So.
Yeah, I think that the main challenge, though, I mean, like you've already said, getting a lot of no's, or basically getting a lot of, radio silence. You went to an audition, you went to your 23rd audition this month, and you heard nothing. The phone didn't ring. I mean, I think that that's what a lot of people come to expect anyway, right? But I mean, that's not that it doesn't still get you down, of course. But
right.
I think one of the main problems, one of the main challenges that a lot of people face is not getting feedback, because that silence, it's not telling you were shit, you should stop doing this, and that audition wasn't so good. You have that little voice in your head already saying, oh my God, I think I was actually shit, I should have done it this way. But it's like you're not getting any feedback, and in a way that's much worse, because at least if the feedback was, that little bit you did, that was shit, right? And that it was good, and then that's learning. But when you're not actually getting nobody gives you feedback on auditions, right? It's just either you were right for it or you weren't right for this one, and that's it.
Yeah, so in your head you go to the worst place sometimes. You think, why am I doing this? It's like, is this, am I terrible? You start to, when you're doing so many sometimes and you're not getting anything, you really start to question, are they laughing at me? Like, are they just getting this and being like, oh, her again? Like, why did we get, but they're not, if you're getting the auditions, like,
exactly.
they are. And I've been on the other side where I've watched auditions, and I was surprised being on that end of things as a producer at how amazing the auditions were. There were so many good auditions. You know, there's like the odd one where you're like, but there are so many good auditions where it becomes tough to choose who to select because there are so many good ones. And I almost, you know, and then when you don't end up casting someone in a project, you almost want to, because you're an actor as well, reach out and be like, look, you were amazing. Like we wanted to cast you. There was, you know, there just aren't enough roles. And I've definitely gone to that place myself where I think, oh, why did I send that? That was probably terrible. And then you're at a party and someone yells your name who you've never seen face to face, so you don't initially recognize them. And they're like, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm a casting director, and I've received many of your self-tapes, and I love them. So I wish that would happen more and to more actors, so they would know that like you're on the right track. It's really just a matter of it being there aren't enough roles, and it's who knows what it comes down to, and there's always a team of people deciding. So maybe you were one person's favorite. I've had producers reach out to my agent a few times this year and say, okay, we want Trish for this role. And then, you know, my agents will let me know. And then when I follow up, when I haven't heard anything, I say, oh, whatever happened to that project where they said they were considering me for the lead? And then she said, oh, they did. They did reach out, but now they've switched directors. So now there's a new director. So that director has a favorite. So it really comes down to, even if one producer, you're their favorite, it comes down to also being the director's choice and this producer's choice and this executive producer's choice, maybe, who's putting the funding in and wants to say.
It's a decision made by committee, essentially, so that they all have to be like
on the same page.
Yeah.
Everyone has to line up to get a role. It's a special thing.
Yeah.
And a very rare thing for me in my experience.
I wanted to ask you about some specific things from your work, and I picked out two things. Mm-hmm. One, which is called My Roommate's an Escort, which I understand is online.
Yeah.
And if that's okay, I'll post the link.
Sure.
Under this in the comments so people can watch it to see what I'm talking about. But you play Heather in that, mm-hmm. Who is, I think would be correct to say, a very mild-mannered, fairly quiet, you know, tries to be nice to everybody. And that contrasts very much with a new role that you were recently in, where you played a character called Top Dog, which is in the upcoming series Pink is In, which is going to be shown on Bell Fibe in January.
Yes.
Which I'm excited to watch. And so can you tell me a bit more about those characters and how you found their voices?
Heather, like you said, she was more meek, and she's very non-confrontational. So in finding the voices, well, Katie Ullman and I co-wrote the series. And what we did when we were writing the first season, we did 2 seasons. So season 1, we had written the episodes, but we hadn't put the show out there yet. So what we started doing was these YouTube videos interacting with fans or friends, because we had created the social media pages for the show. And then on these social media pages, we posted videos that we just would shoot in a park on a cell phone or out in a parking lot after a writing session, in the characters. So it was like a Q&A, and that really helped us find the character voices and get into character. So we would answer these questions people wrote in the characters. So I definitely think developing a character's voice and mannerisms, it takes a lot of time. I've had coaches in the past. There was a coach who said, never say the lines out loud before going to an audition or going to set. you want it to be in the moment and very genuine. For me, I find doing things like that, where you talk in the character as the character over time, is how you really can develop a character's voice. So to me, I feel like, you know, I did do that one time. I went to an audition and hadn't said it out loud at all, just read it. And then I got there, and when I went to speak, it's like I didn't even recognize my own voice, and it sounded weird coming out. And for me, it's much more about muscle memory and nailing down a voice. For top, so Heather's more like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, no problem, yeah.
So the voice is very sort of like high up there, very light.
It's high up. She's always kind of avoiding whatever issue is at hand and just skirting around issues. So she's a very, you know, nervous, high-pitched. She has a very nervous, high-pitched voice. And then for Top Dog, I found to develop that voice, we did shoot a teaser trailer a year ago. So that's when I started about a year ago working on that character. And then that is the teaser that got the show picked up by Bell Fibe. And then we shot the episodes in September. So I had quite a bit of time to, you know, read through the scripts, think about who Top Dog is and her backstory,
develop it,
her position in the prison. And she's the kind of person who, she is the top dog in this prison. So if she were to show any sort of nervousness in the way that she presents herself with speaking and mannerisms, she would lose her ranking. So I thought about the stakes with that, and how, if I were in that sort of position, how I would talk to, you know, keep my position. So Top Dog is, and then I also did a Skype discussion with the director before going to set, and chatting with him, you don't always get that opportunity. So chatting with him also really helped solidify a lot of those choices for Top Dog. And when I read we went through the script, but then when I did the voice that just wants to naturally come out for Top Dog, he was happy with that. So that was a relief, because there was just a certain voice that was flowing as Top Dog, who, you know, she's got her attitude and she doesn't let anybody mess with her. So it's a lot more cocky, chin up, no nonsense, use the eyebrows. It's definitely a different character. So it's been nice to have the opportunity to play that range of characters.
Was it shot in a real prison, or is it all a set?
It is a set. It's a set in a Hamilton film studio that I believe was also used for the Hardy Boys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Wow. And it comes out do you know what the date in January is? And
the date is January 11th, 2021. So excited to start saying 2021. And it will be on Fibe to start with. And then I'm not sure, I guess there will be updates down the road if there's other platforms or means of watching as well.
Cool. So Bell Fibe 1. I'll definitely look out for that, because I do have Bell Fibe. So,
so
I'll get to watch it. That's awesome. So, all right. And so I understand you said that you shot this, it was in September.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that you don't like shooting anything in the winter or at night. Why is that?
I'm glad that is out there now. So luckily for Pink is In, that was not shot in the winter or at night. A lot of horror movies are shot at night. And I love horror movies, but I really don't like staying up past 11 o'clock. That is a thing.
But you're so young. That shouldn't be a problem for you.
It's a problem. Don't get me wrong. If the role came up, I would do it. But I did a Christmas movie a few years ago outside of Sudbury. It was feels like minus 40 every day. And I was the one Canadian out of the main cast. There were 4 of us. It was an ensemble, and they were all from the States. And they were like, "You should be used to this. You're the Canadian." And there is no getting used to it. There's just no, I don't have any sort of armor built into my skin. I'm from Northern Ontario. It is freezing. But I do say a lot, by the way. I'm noticing this.
Hey, we are kindred spirits. I do it all the time. I watch back any videos I do, and sometimes it annoys me to the point where I'll edit the ums out. Like, okay, it's like you're not annoying me with your ums. It's just I annoy myself with all the time, even when it's scripted. Like, it's like, dude, what are you doing? That was not even in your script. But what are you gonna do?
It's a good filler. I don't know if it's a good filler, but it's something that does come out. The like is what gets me when I get excited and I start saying like. And I listen back to a podcast, I think, I really have to stop saying that word. That really irks me. When I first moved to Toronto years ago, now I'm back basically up north, kind of back and forth between Toronto and Sault Ste. Marie, but more in Sault Ste. Marie with COVID. There we go. And one of the first agencies I was with in Toronto said that I say yeah, and it makes me sound like a Northern Ontario girl. And eventually they would have me trained to say yes.
Right.
And I still remember that every time I say yeah, I think, ooh, I'm supposed to say yes, not yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a Northern Ontario thing, is it? Yeah.
I guess so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't you know?
It reminds me of, what was that show that like a detective? What's it called?
Bobby's World?
No, there's one. It's like it's somewhere in the Midwest United States, and it's Fargo.
Oh, Fargo.
Fargo. Yeah, it reminds me of Fargo. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, don't you know? Oh, don't you know, Bobby dear? Don't you know?
I gotta do a bit more research on that accent up there. I remember there was I met someone for the first and probably the last time. He was from the Ottawa Valleys. I'm like, where the hell is that accent from? She had this. It was a weird kind of a twang. I'd never heard from anywhere else. Have you ever heard that Ottawa Valley's twang? Sort of like a, oh yeah. They also do that. Oh yeah.
I did live in Ottawa, but I did not live in the Ottawa Valley. But I'm sure I worked with people who lived in the Ottawa Valley.
Yeah, totally different.
I think which one you're talking about. It's what I hear as a Canadian accent, but it's not necessarily Canadian because we're Canadian and we don't use that accent. So I think it's just particular to some areas, like the like the Ottawa.
I once met a guy who was I don't know, I believe he's like a linguist professor or something, and I remember chatting to him, and he said, "Oh yeah, well, I wrote a book about Canadian accents," and I thought, okay, so how many are there? And he says, "Well, I noted 22." I'm like, fuck off. There ain't 22. You might get 6 at a push, but 22.
Wow,
that's stretching it.
It's like a lot.
Yeah, well, I think if you included a lot of different urban ones, like different, like in Montreal, there are several that are.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, Italian.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so I guess when you start including those, and you can bump the numbers up a little bit because these accents are changing over years. But I mean, across Canada, like once you get past like Ottawa Valleys, when you go anything west of there, it's pretty much of a muchness. It sounds the same. I think. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about you.
Oh, the only thing I do differently, I was going to say, is when auditioning for American roles, when it comes to saying sorry or out.
Yeah.
I just purposefully say sorry and out.
Yeah, it's got to be sorry. Sorry and out.
not out.
Exactly. You got it. Because those are the main giveaways for Canadians when they're trying to do an American accent. And, you know, some of the like really famous, I just did one of those likes there. Some of the very famous, what was it?
Amy Schumer.
Was it Amy Schumer? I don't think it was Amy Schumer. I know that there is one very famous female actor who plays Americans quite a lot because that's where all the money is. And
Rachel McAdams.
I think she's from around Toronto area. But she was doing this, and then every now and then I saw this critique, like an accent critique that a dialect coach did. And she's going, ooh, oh, that's so cute, but it's not American. And it was like, yeah, I heard that slip through. So, and I believe it was like an out or something like that, or a shout. And it's like, oh, no, you can't, because Canadians have that. It's what's called a split. There's like a split in that diphthong, which is really weird because I don't think any other accent splits that vowel in the same way. Mm-hmm. So you've got like, when you've got the ow vowel followed by a voiceless stop, like a k or a t or a p. Is it ever followed by a p? I don't know. But it's, yeah, it becomes an o. So out and about. But then you've got your roundabout. Not that you have many roundabouts.
About, couch, house.
Now that's American.
Mm-hmm. I dated a guy in LA and he was very quick to make fun of me anytime I sounded Canadian, which I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he really scarred me for life when it comes to saying words that make me sound Canadian.
Right, which is okay when you're playing a Canadian or you're being involved,
and I'm just being me, who is a Canadian.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be proud of that when you're out being a Canadian. That's right.
Exactly.
Don't be sorry about it.
I'm not sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry about it. Okay.
So, do you prefer self tapes or live auditions?
I prefer self tapes. I always have. I get really nervous in person. There's just this weird, you know, you go on a streetcar. I didn't drive in Toronto. I didn't have a car there. So I would streetcar to these auditions. I'd be like fumbling with my pages, you know, hoping that I had the lines all down and worrying too much, I think, about the memorization, which shouldn't be a thing, but it is a thing when you go in the room and you're doing many pages and, you know, you don't want to have your face in the pages. So I just found it was a lot of pressure. You often get an audition the day before and, you know, you get there, you're on the streetcar, you're psyching yourself out, you get to the room, you see all these people, you're like, oh, great, love you in Workin' Moms. You were fantastic in that Christmas movie I watched last week. Oh, I know you. No, never mind, I don't. You're so-and-so from The Boys. So you see all these people who you watch on TV and you're like, oh yeah, that girl's awesome. I mean, I can't help but think those things. I'm like, oh yeah, that person's like perfect for this role. They're gonna nail this. But there's just like a weird kind of, you see other actors and you almost want to be friendly and chit chat. Sometimes there's no washroom, so you really have to pee and you're sitting there and then you get brought into this room and you want to chat with the casting director because you're so grateful that they thought of you and brought you in and you haven't seen them maybe in months sometimes. So you want to catch up and say hello and say hi to the person on camera and the assistant and whoever else is in the room. So there's this kind of like, who's going to be in the room? Oh, hey, oh, hi, how's it going? And you're trying to talk to everyone and be friendly, but then you're also trying to think about this character and these 14 pages that you just got yesterday. And I get too much in my head and I flub it. So yeah. And there's always something else going on in life. Like you had strep throat and you're still on the antibiotics, or you had 5 coffees that morning and then the streetcar was delayed and you're all jittery. So there's always something just about it that I don't like.
Am I right in thinking that you had an embarrassing story about an audition you went into once?
Oh, I feel like you might be psychic, because I don't know if I have told this story.
I'm sure I asked you this. I think you forgot about it.
I definitely have had very embarrassing audition moments, many of them. The worst one was, well, naturally, the first one that I ever did. I didn't know anything about how to audition for a film. So I walked into the room. I didn't know about the mark on the floor, where to stand. I didn't know that you're not supposed to shake the people's hands at the table. I didn't even know what a slate was. I was like, what, a slate? What am I doing? And I was given a sample of who they were looking for, and she was a supermodel in the 90s. So I looked up a photo of her. I look nothing like a supermodel. So I like plastered on the makeup and did this like 90s big eyeshadow. And I felt so uncomfortable. And I walked into the room, I shook their hands, blabbed something, like darted around the room, not knowing where I was supposed to go, and then walked out and walked into the door and could not figure out for the life of me how to open the door. It was a sliding door.
Oh, no. And you wanted not the door to open, but like a hole in the ground
to just engulf me. And
no.
Never wanted to audition again. After that, I took a class on just how to audition, and that was extremely helpful and kind of was a game changer. After that, I actually booked some roles. So that took away a lot of the pressure of just not knowing. But I do find when it's a big audition, and big as in, I mean, maybe a show that I'm a fan of, I feel like that pressure gets to me. I drink too much coffee. I go there, I'm jittery, I'm nervous. And I think some of them go okay, but some of them are they just go wrong. So I like self-tapes because you can, and I find in person, they often just give you one take and you just feel like you're warming up.
Mm.
And on the way there, like I'm on a streetcar, so you can't really warm up on a streetcar. So I feel like the first time when I finally get to the audition, if there's no bathroom or anywhere for you to go and rehearse, and there's a bunch of other people in the room, you just kind of go in and you do it the first time and you feel like you're just getting warmed up. And on set, you do a blocking where you block with the director. For anyone who's not in film, who does not know what the heck a blocking is, it's you walk through the scene with the director and they, you come up with your movements in the scene, and attaching movement to words really just makes them so much more natural, I find. And just walking through it, it just gives you that ease. And then when you go to do the first take, you've already blocked through it. And you often get a camera rehearsal, but being on set is so much more natural to me. An audition room, you walk in, you blurt it out. They're like, okay, great. And you're like, are you sure? Because I don't think that was great. And then, but you just say, okay, great, thanks, good to see you. Thanks for bringing me in. And you leave. And then all day you're just like, ugh, why? So for me, auditions, send via self-tape, just alleviate all of that disgusting, awful, nervous, blah, grossness.
Can I ask you, like, what's your trick to learning lines? Because I find that for me, if I'm in a play, I find that the learning of lines becomes so much faster once I'm in doing the blocking, because the movement helps me with like, oh, I remember I say this there, and whereas the page and it's like it's so much more difficult. How do you go about it?
I'm the exact same way. When I've done theater, attaching blocking to the lines just helps you to process the words, and it just brings meaning to them and muscle memory to them. And if you can do a 2-hour play, you can do a 5-page audition, but there's just, it's just a very different thing. I think if you think about the scene and how you would block it if you were on set and attach that for an audition, even if you can't walk around for the audition, I think that's a really good way of learning the scene. So if I'm rehearsing a scene for an audition, I will attach some blocking to it because it just brings it to life. But then, of course, in the audition, you're not doing that blocking. You're standing how I am right now with just a big frame. So that really helps. I do find adding some actions to the words helps.
And it makes it more natural. So Trish, tell me about 180 Sisterhood.
180 Sisterhood Productions is a production company that I co-own with Rebecca Heron. And we produce and service produce feature films, music videos, commercials. We produce podcasts, a whole bunch of stuff. So we have an upcoming feature film in, I'm going to say now that we're shooting April, it's looking like. And during 2020, we shot smaller projects with smaller crews because that's what was achievable during this strange year. So we co-directed a music video and produced that. We were service producers on a feature. What else have we done? We just worked on a commercial that's out doing some locations and that sort of thing. So yeah, just a whole bunch of stuff. We have a podcast, Drunk Read-Throughs, on Sounder FM, iTunes, Spotify, all the things, Google Podcasts. But I did run over the microphone today.
Oh yeah, that's right. I got the message from you saying, "Oh yeah, I busted my microphone by running over it in my car." It's like, why did you do that? And you said the funniest thing was the photograph you sent of this smashed up. I'm going to include that in the comments. I'm going to post that picture in the comments of your sad, busted microphone.
So sad. It's really sad to see that. Really sad. It's a sad day.
Definitely. So I'm going to get you to send me some links to a lot of the things that you've mentioned. I'm going to put those so people can go check them out.
Very cool.
See some more of your great work. So Trish, thank you so much for joining me today and being my first person on the live version of this show, and also being the first female. Finally, I got a woman on the show. I don't know.
Finally.
Yeah, it's otherwise people are going to start like questioning, my subscription to the patriarchy. Like what?
I did notice a couple of my friends were on previously, John Tench and Juan Carlos Vélez.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed those conversations. I actually learned some things about Juan Carlos that I didn't know, and he's a friend of mine. So yeah, I texted him. I said, wow, your stories are so, his story about joining the union, his story about coming to Canada. I'm like, I didn't not in this much depth. So it was really nice to listen to those and learn some more about my peers.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope some more people will listen to that podcast, but I really like this format as well. Mm-hmm. Live, but and also with this live one, I don't really have to do any editing. That's
perfect. So bonus.
Yeah, I'm a lazy bastard. I don't like editing. So
aren't we all? Oh, it can be tedious editing. I don't know how people do it.
It's killer. Especially I'm trying to mostly edit out my voice. Like, oh my God, shut up. I clip out my question or whatever, or my reaction to it. But so that's the only downside to the live. But and also you can see how many people are not watching it as well. But I hope that we can. You see, Trish, this is nothing. You need to share this with your friends on your page.
I will definitely do that. I will do that. Thanks so much for having me. I feel honored that you reached out and that I came to mind. I enjoy talking, so thank you.
I gave you the forum to talk about.
You did. I really feel good now. I feel like I can, get on with my day. And now I've reached my talking quota. So if nobody talks to me, it won't be so sad.
Yeah, we've gone past 1 hour now. And I know that I have to stop you because after the hour, I have to start paying you at your extortionate rate.
That's right. You got that contract and you did sign it. So this interview is over.
Awesome. Thanks for coming along. Right. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye.